Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. It gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. They'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of It Is What It Is podcast. I'm your host, Cody Kelly. I'm super excited today. I have an amazing panel, an amazing episode. I've been looking forward to this for the last 2 weeks. I really want to dive in deep. Today's podcast episode is on colorism, a very controversial topic that hasn't, to me, fully been discussed, particularly within the Black community. One of the reasons why this topic came to mind, wife and I, right, it's COVID, so, there's nothing to do but watch Netflix. We're watching just some, Black movies. That's what we do. We go through Netflix, and I try to look for all the, Black directors and whatnot. So I was like, hey, look, School Days, I've seen it 1,000 times. Let's just rewatch it for the heck of it. We're out with some friends. Watching School Days, there's a dance sequence really surrounding a hair salon, and they get into this montage of just battling, and really it's an engagement of conversation and dialogue between lighter skin complected Black Americans and darker skin complected Black Americans. One of the titles is good or bad hair, see if I care, darker affairs, good or bad hair, and it's a whole just onslaught, and it's interesting. I mean, the choreography was amazing, the sequencing was amazing. But I think it dives into a deeper topic. So I invited these 5 individuals who are amazing, and I believe one is going to join us shortly. I'm going to read a couple of their bios because they sent over to me, because some of these guys were actually obedient and actually read the email, so I appreciate the ones that did. So I will start with Jasmine, and then I have Morgan's bio that I will read right here that I'm actually pulling up. Got it right here. All right, so let's start with Jasmine. So Jasmine, Lady Jasmine Spencer, is a native of Chicago, Illinois, 3rd-generation member of the Church of God in Christ. Through the holiness teaching of her family, she has received Jesus Christ as her personal Savior, received the baptism of the Holy Ghost. Through her steadfast love for the Lord and faithfulness to ministry, Lady Jazz, as she is affectionately known, has served the kingdom in many areas. She has matriculated through schools, receiving her high school diploma 2006 with high honors, a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science with a minor sociology from my alma mater, Loyola University of Chicago, in 2010. Then in 2011, she received her paralegal studies certificate, also from Loyola University of Chicago. Currently, she works for United Health Services. She is married to the love of her life, good friend of mine, and amazing just person to pick his brain, Pastor R. Matthew Spencer. Together, they have one beautiful daughter, Reagan Jasmine Spencer, one handsome son, R. Matthew Spencer II. 2015, Lady Spencer, alongside her husband, established the Freedom Dominion Church, where she serves faithfully as the First Lady and Executive Administrator. Recently, she has accepted her call to the gospel ministry, Lady Jazz Life, by the motto, "Excellence is our only option. We are the kingdom." She is also the owner CEO of Peculiar Royalty, an LLC, and a lifestyle blogger and influencer. Connect with her on LinkedIn. And then I have with me Morgan Williams, and I'm going to introduce all my guests. I don't know why I can't read today. I think I've had too much coffee and it's starting to wear off, so I'm stumbling over my words. Morgan, St. Louis native Morgan Williams, is an associate on the corporate contributions and community initiatives team at Amarin Corporation. She is somebody at Amarin Corporation. Morgan manages and oversees a budget in excess of $10 million per year through forecasting, data analytics, and reporting to senior leadership of contributions made to the local community through Amarin's charitable trust and company funds. Morgan's genuine passion for empowering and serving those around her is how her business, Oh So Sisterly, was created. Oh So Sisterly focuses on the online content development with strategic emphasis on women's empowerment. Its mission to improve the quality of life for women everywhere by creating an inclusive, collaborative environment for story sharing, cultivating healthy dialogue amongst women. Oh So Sisterly's platform leverages art in the various forms to deliver significant messaging around self-worth, self-confidence, self-love for all women. Then I have with me Tequila Doors. I would like to say Tequila Doors is an amazing professional. She is also the unofficial official assistant first lady of Prayer Tower Ministries. For all those that are watching, shout out to her husband, Damon Doors. It's interesting. I said when Shay's one of the few people that when she marries, her husband became our favorite, and we just kind of, almost forgot about Shay, but she is amazing. An awesome contributor, just a leader. If you really connected with her, she is an activist in her own right. I say she is the Kojic Angela Rye. So I really appreciate her. Then I have the Candies Rose Bryan. She is now in Texas. I do not have her bio, but I know enough about her.
I did. I sent you my bio.
So I'm just being disobedient.
Check your email.
I'm being disobedient right now. Let me see. I think I can wing it. I know enough about you. Or I'm okay. I got it right here. I got it. I can read. All right. Missionary Candies Rose Bryant. Oh, she got the real bio. Born July 7th, 1982. Your parents, John Henry. Missionary Candies Wilson. Eldest girl, 3 of 5 siblings. Missionary Bryant is the 4th generation. You see these generations? Look at this. This is a Kojic show, boy. Church of God in Christ. Gave her life completely to God on July 31st, 2005. And on January the 6th, 2006, was baptized and filled with the Holy Ghost under the leadership of the late, great Bishop Cody Vernon Marshall. She lives a life of prayer that is the foundation of her love for God. A native of Chicago, Illinois, she has attended and graduated from prestigious Robert Lindblom College Prep. Hey, you went to Lindblom. My mom graduated there. Later, the fall, she enrolled into NIU, graduating class in 2005, earning a BA in sociology with an emphasis in criminology and a minor in family and child studies. On May 12, 2018, she graduated from Texas Southern University with an executive master of public administration. After giving her life to God, she was beginning to carve out a ministry identity. Missionary Bryant, creator and organizer of Cafe Hallelujah. She is, and we still actually operate Cafe Hallelujah today, a departmental event designed to create a safe environment for young people to express and develop God-given talents such as spoken word, poetry, song, rap, comedy, and a few other things. Missionary Bryant is a charter board member of the Education Matters Starting Leaders Youngs, which is a collegiate prep organization devoted to educating youth and parents on the transitional challenges from high school to college. Look, she is somebody. I got a full thing. That's a whole paragraph that I have with me. Ariel Crenshaw, amazing AKA member. She is right now getting her master's MSN in nursing, correct? I remember from the last time. Yes. Yeah. Look, she's a graduate of all alma mater as well. Jasmine Ozer, Loyola Rambler. I mean, she went there. She is my buddy, but amazing, just intellectual, amazing, just professional. I'm super excited. I know that was a long intro, but when you have heavyweights like this, sometimes you got to spend the time on it. So how are you guys doing?
Good. Really good.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you for being here. Look, let's get into it. Let's dive deep. I want to open it up. So with that being said, with the montage, I know today Vice President Biden announced his VP pick, Senator Kamala Harris. Great pick. I'm a huge fan. But I think even then, colorism can play a part of that. And I really want to get into how weighted this result. Sometimes we talk about racism and classism, but there are internal challenges even within one's ethnicity and organization, right? So I want to start here. And I want to always give my audience an FYI. Look, they're speaking on their own personal experiences. They're not answering for all light-skinned people, all caramel-complected people, or dark-skinned people. This is theirs, but there is a shared similar experience. So don't be like, look, I'm light-skinned. I didn't go through that. That just could be you, right? So I want to start with you, Tequila Doors. What is it like being light-skinned?
Oh, wow. Okay, so being light-skinned, where do I start? I think you're caught between two worlds. Being light-skinned. Growing up, I think there was issues as far as being accepted by the Black community. And because I grew up in white suburbia and I went to church in Inglewood and my parents owned a business on the south side of Chicago. So trying to navigate those two worlds where in white suburbia, I'm being called a nigger, hard R, And then when I go to the south side of Chicago, I'm being called a hunky. So I had an identity crisis, but I knew I was Black, but I didn't know what my Blackness was. And now growing up, I've learned to deal with some of those issues. And now I realize just like there's white privilege, there's light skin privilege. And I can maneuver and move around in society in a fashion that darker complected people can't. And it's not fair. So I've dealt, I guess it's a dichotomy that I deal with. And because I'm able now to move around in society like that, I deal with this guilt, this light skin guilt that I struggle with on a regular basis. So, yeah.
Light skin guilt. I've actually never heard of light skin guilt. I'm light skinned myself. I got a tan right now because I go out and do a lot of running. But I'm light skinned. When the tan wears off, we're about the same hue. That's what family. That's that Perry stuff. So, but light skin guilt, light skin privilege is a real thing. I always say I probably wouldn't be as half as far if I was a little darker. And I definitely wouldn't get treated by the police that I do. Like they might pull me over, but it's like a hard warning. It's not like it's just different. Morgan, I'm throwing it to you. I'm not caramel complected, and then Rosie will follow up with it, and then I'm going to hit on being dark skinned. That might be interesting because in your case, Morgan, you're not light skinned, but you don't suffer from the same obstacles that a darker skinned woman would suffer from. Right. So like, the ushers of the world, you could kind of almost play in both fields. Right. What has that experience been like for you?
Well, for those that aren't aware on the panel, I come from a family of 7, and ironically, half of us are either very fair skinned or we are a nice mocha brown skin like myself. So when comparing myself to siblings that weren't brown skinned, I just automatically considered myself as dark skinned. And I had a lot of classmates actually tell me, well, Morgan, you're not actually a dark skinned woman, sweetheart. Are you aware of that? But that just shows you what my perception has been ever since I was little, because it was just based upon what I saw within my family. So I've always just identified with a dark-skinned woman. And one thing that I can say, present day, just being a darker complected woman, it is embraced more now. And I think it's because we have people within platforms. When I think of people specifically like Beyonce, who has influence, who just put out a song called Brown Skin Girls. So now it's celebrated. It's appreciated. So I think, little girls now have more of a representation of the browner complected women. And because of that, embrace it a little bit more than I probably can admit that I did when I was younger. I identified as a darker skinned girl, and comparing myself to siblings and family, oftentimes wish that I was able to identify with them in that way, in terms of having a very fair skin tone as they did.
That's interesting. Rosie, you're caramel complected as well. Did you identify as a darker skinned woman, or how did that go about? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Look, it was hard to date. Because like when I was dating, like for whatever reason, Omarion was, really big, and like I wasn't dark skinned and I didn't have braids and I couldn't dance, and it was just hard to navigate that channel. I had to compete against the Omarions of the world. It's working now, thank God for President Obama, but I'm married now, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just saying, like after 2008, I was fine. So you're brown, you're a brown skin complected lady. What has that experience been like for you, Rosie?
So, this was really a topic I had to really kind of think about, because I am not dark and I am not like really light skinned. So I was as I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I'm kind of like a neutral. I'm kind of like non-threatening. Because it was like the light-skinned girls, identified as they had those issues, and then dark-skinned girls. But I never had a colorism issue. My older brothers, my mom, one of my younger sisters, like I grew up in a house where everybody was dark-skinned. So I remember them even teasing me by me being lighter than them, but it still wasn't like, you're really not light skinned, you're just lighter than us. But in my mind, I thought, well, I think I would rather be brown than have the issues of like dark skinned people. So that was I was like an outsider, but I knew within, like, well, I mean, this is the complexion that I am, and I would rather be this complexion than dark because y'all have a lot of issues, So that was kind of my take. But I was thinking, like, being brown skin is kind of like the good thing because you're in the middle. You don't have either issue. I don't have a dark skin issue, and I don't have a light girl issue. So kind of neutral.
Kind of neutral. Speak on this neutrality. So Jasmine, I'm throwing it to you. I've known you for all of our lives. You have an amazing family. Your grandmother is sweet, sweet as pie. She is really. I never thought about the role that color plays until I got older, right? So tell me about that. I'm not dark skinned. I do not know what that world is. I'm black, but like there's variations to that, right? So like, What has that been like for you? What has colorism in your experience been like?
It's been kind of like Candace said, kind of in the middle of the road. I grew up, me and my sister were all the same color. And then my brother, he's a little lighter than us. So we would tease him. He was made of sand and we were made of chocolate when we were kids growing up. So I have that memory from when I was little. But then growing up, I really never paid attention to it until maybe high school, college. That's when it was really made as a pronounced difference. In grade school, I was mostly in a suburban school, kids my same color. There was, I don't even think it may have been one Caucasian. So it was like a completely different dynamic racially that we went through. Sure. But once I got to high school and started noticing people from different backgrounds, even though we are, like you said, we're all still black, even though we have that same common denominator, now where we're coming from, other things are coming into play. And I'm like, oh, I never realized that. Then that's when I started to pay attention to different things, even like on our TV shows that we would watch. So like A Different World, where like the main girl that everybody wanted was like Whitley or Denise. But then you had Kim, she was always studying and she was a doctor. It was just like little nuanced things where now you're being introduced to that subtly. And like, you're like, so is this really how life is going to be as I grow up? Like when I go to college, like, is this the kind of thing I'm going to have to face? So that's just kind of my perspective on how I kind of looked at things growing up.
Awesome. Ariel, I'm throwing it to you. Your experience being, dark skinned, what has that been like? I know Jasmine mentioned even watching TV shows like A Different World and seeing that dynamic. What has that experience been like?
I would say growing up, it didn't occur to me that I was dark skinned until I was in elementary school. Even though growing up, I do have a lot of cousins who are lighter than me. I would just say like, oh, they're just lighter. It's no big deal, even though they did used to tease me every once in a while, but it was never like a big obstacle. But when I started going to elementary school, I was also very tall. I've been like 5'9" since I was in like 5th grade. So I used to get teased for being very tall, and I used to get teased for being darker too. But in high school, I didn't really see any change or a dynamic that way. I also played a lot of sports, so just seeing how, I guess, being a couple, especially in volleyball, you see that there's not that many African Americans that play volleyball at all, but you do see that there also isn't there is not a lot of darker complected African Americans that play at all as well. But I do know that growing up, my parents, they did try to educate us and making us understand the role in which our skin would play.
Mm-hmm.
And they did have a talk with me very young, saying like, knowing that you are going to grow up, you are going to be darker complected, so you need to be prepared for things that may happen in the world and things that people may say as well. But I did see, like Jasmine mentioned before, like in TV shows, seeing how darker complected people were overlooked for things and how they were treated to be viewed as not as significant or valued as well. So I didn't know how that was going to affect me growing up, but I will say that it did make me think a lot more as well.
Awesome. Era, I want to stay with you and then Jasmine, and then we'll go Jasmine, Rosie, Morgan, Shay. Is there a double standard? Let's take it up now. Is there a double standard in beauty? And what I mean by this, so I came across this article, and I believe I posted on my Facebook. It was actually the tribute magazine that Ebony did toward Dr. King. It came out May 1968. But one on the inside cover, it was a skin bleaching product. And it was like, basically, desire that beautiful look. And it was this really fair skinned woman in the skin bleaching product. And this push for this light skin narrative, right? And what beauty, we always talk about like the assimilation toward, a more European look. It's like, it's there. It's undeniable. And I've always said that has to be addressed. Like for me, I knew that, I was attracted to Black women. I didn't care what variation that came in, right? It wasn't like, I got to get me a whatever, but I'm saying as a woman, is there like a double standard? Like, I mean, now it's getting a little bit better. You see the Michelle Obamas of the world, but still traditionally, there is this push toward light. What has that been like as far as that beauty standard?
I'll say for myself that definitely when thinking about specifically hair, things that I'm able to do, like I have to keep in mind, like, okay, you're darker skin. So like when I went natural, I was like, okay, I'm darker skin. I don't know what grade my hair is going to be. Is it going to be 3C? Is it going to be 4C? Like, how is that going to be viewed? So that goes all into texturism as well. Like, what's viewed as being okay? Because if you don't have the ringlets, the 3C hair, you're viewed as, well, you don't have good hair, so you're not deemed as beautiful. And then when I went into locks, I also had to think, like, is that gonna be okay? Because now I have locks, and how are locks viewed on a darker complected woman? So I do think there is a double standard in beauty as far as what is deemed okay for darker complected women to have. And I think now it's starting to be, as Morgan stated before, it is definitely started to be accepted more, because we do have a lot more people that are on platforms that are showing that it is okay for people to do these things, and that it shouldn't be deemed as not okay, and that it's something that we need to be more accepting of.
Awesome. Jasmine, your husband is light-skinned. Awesome guy. Keeps me laughing quite often. What did anybody at any time tell you that's what you should attract to? Because the reason why I say this is there are cultural stigmas. And sometimes you get pushed into certain avenues if you're not careful, right? And I'm trying to say this correct. Hey, you hear what I'm trying to say?
I know what you mean, though.
Right.
So, I wouldn't say I was more so pushed that way. I get what you're saying with the cultural thing.
Right.
You hear it even like growing up. Of course, all Black people say they got Indian in their family, so that's why they get good hair or something like that. But it's more like, especially around those adolescent years, oh, so-and-so is mixed. Oh, I want to go out with him. Oh, if I have a baby by this one, my baby's gonna have good hair or this kind of skin color. So you hear those things. I wasn't more so swayed by this. Actually, I was the exact opposite. Like, I made sure that in my dating, everybody that I talked to, I was anti light skin. It was crazy. And that's when I started talking to my husband. Everybody was so taken aback, like, so where he come from though? Because, you wouldn't even look the direction of anybody light. And I was like, well, that's how I knew. Because, because so much was put on that, like you were saying, Marion era, even like Chris Brown, just like in that, it's like, let me just stay away from the popular thing. Like, I'm gonna do my own thing over here. And you see it more so now. It's not as bad because we do have, like everyone's been saying, the role models, but then we also do have the flip side of that with so many Instagram influencers that say, yeah, even though you're still a darker skinned person, if you have the the straight hair, or if you are thicker in certain places, you'll still garner the attention regardless of your color. So it's not so much the light versus dark, like maybe our parents experience, but it's a little different. And because so many things subconsciously influence us, like social media and things like that, I think that's kind of what's affecting our generation and the one coming behind us, because now it's like, it's not so much the color that's the standard of beauty. It's like what comes with the color. Do you have the 30-inch weave? Do you have, your long stiletto nails? Or is your waist tiny, but then the rest of you huge? Like, it's different things like that that's kind of creeping in and taking the place more so of that light skin, dark skin.
I like that, and I think that's a good pivot, Rosie. That evolution, that shift, because I think it hits to it. It kind of ties back to the episode I did yesterday on Black hair. This beauty imagery of what beautiful is. What has that been like? Transitioning from, let's say, the early 2000s at the most probably immature time in hip hop. The Cash Money era to like now, right? Like. How have you navigated through this channel?
So I got a confession. So the natural hair era is like exploded, right? I'm natural, but for a long time I did not feel pretty with my hair like textured, like curly or whatever. But I realized it was a conditioning that we've kind of been conditioned to think that straight hair, lights, like we've been conditioned to do that. So I don't really know if we really have a really good take on what beauty really is. So I've had to kind of adjust to, it doesn't really matter what I look like on the outside, what my hair looks like. It's an inward thing that I need to exude and show the world. So I've kind of adjusted, but that was a period for me. I'm like, well, I want to be natural because, power to the people. But then I was like, but I don't really think I'm really that cute when my hair is all curly like that. And then it shrinks up and you're like, so it took a while for me to adjust to like this new beauty. But then I knew it was accepted by a lot of other Blacks now, and especially Black women. Like, oh, if you not natural, it's like, oh, you putting the perm in your hair? Like, we not doing that no more. We natural. So it took some adjusting, but now I can kind of go either way. But again, I think a little of your self-esteem plays a role too, because you got to find yourself to be beautiful, even if nobody else says it. So it needs to be a little bit more about what you think of self versus what the world says, because the world is kind of confused. One thing is one way one day and the next day, like they're fickle. So I've learned to look within versus like this whole outside thing.
Awesome. Morgan, you. So Rosie brought up kind of the hair and just kind of that positioning on, straight hair, and then now this push for natural. I'll speak as a man, and I feel like this is needed to be said. Most men, especially when they get over 30, we don't care about hair. I mean, like, I'm bald. I mean, I think there's other things that evolve, and it's like the fickleness of weave to me is a bad investment anyway, but we just don't care. But it still has weight. It still carries gravity, and it still affects what we think beautiful, or this notion of what beauty is. So for you, what has been that? Has it been like I need to get longer hair, or I need to have the 30-inch weave? What has that experience been like to you, Morgan? You're on mute. Hold on. I got you. You're good now.
What's interesting is that I had a very similar experience as Rosie in college. I went away to Jackson State. It wasn't a lot of options for what to do to your hair at that time. The natural hair wave hadn't really hit the fan yet, so everybody had a weave. That was my first time getting weave, and I think it was my first introduction to garnering a certain amount of attention from men. And I think that attention is what really began to kind of shape my idea of what beauty actually looks like. Because now I realize that, there's a certain type of a Black woman that men are looking for, whether it be slim, curvy, long hair. And the long hair is something that I discovered that I just got a lot more attention whenever I wore it. And it almost became something that I was just addicted to. It was like I felt like I had to have the long, straight hair, the nicely caramel, not too dark complexion. I always had slim features, so I felt like, okay, that's the total package to what I think would be appealing. But it wasn't until after I graduated from college and really began to look within. And that's just kind of going back to what Rosie said, and learning to truly love yourself for who you are, no matter how you look. Because here's the deal. Beauty is going to look totally different 5 years from now, 10 years from now. There may be a whole new wave that starts, between now and then of what the world thinks is beautiful, in terms of shape, size, hair color, all of that. So instead of me trying to keep up with the Joneses and be able to be validated by other people, I realized that, hey, you need to just love yourself for who you are and see the beauty that is within you. And when I began to see that and unlearn kind of those things that I picked up during college, it really helped propel me into a direction to where I could truly carry myself in a way that was confident, in a way that showed how much I loved myself for who I was, and allowed for me to be my most authentic version.
Awesome. Shay, I'll hit you with the first question. It's the follow-up on Morgan's, and then I'll hit you with the second one because this will make a little bit more sense. So, Shay, our family is this, right? Like all the way around, right? Like those Perry sisters are, they're pretty much, that's them. And they wear it and they carry it. They wear it proud. Don't fool yourself. They they love the way they look. So what traditionally, you being light-skinned, that has had to create some sense of gravitational effect. Even when we think of, so there's this, and Jasmine, and I'm sure you can attest to this. So your husband and I talked about like the traditional first lady and things that are said without being said, right? So, you marry the first lady, light-skinned first lady, things of that nature. Probably locker room talk that shouldn't exist anymore. But to say that it's not there, it is. What has that experience been like for you? You kind of have matriculated to this point, and now you're really doing the natural hair. But what is that? Ariel hit it on. You were the Whitley of that generation, right? So like now at this point, what has that experience been like for you, Shay?
So it was definitely, I think, a certain look that was expected of me as far as keeping my hair straight, walking, or carrying myself a certain way, wearing makeup, things like that to fit this particular mold or this look. And nothing against them. It's just that generation where they just believed in always presenting your best foot forward. But unfortunately, that best foot was shaped by a society that didn't understand our culture and who we are as a people. So through colonization, they've affected this this look, if you will, and European colonization around the world. So everybody's look around the world is defined through a European lens. So when I decided to cut my hair off and go natural, it was a thing in my mother's house. Like, she's like, why would you want to do that? You know, you look beautiful with straight hair. But I no longer wanted to use a perm, poison my hair, poison my skin to fit this image that to me that wasn't beneficial to me. So it's like we were using like perms, or we had used perms. And this to me is a beautiful moment that we in the Black community that we're in right now. And I just hope it's not a trend. I hope we continue to do this and embrace who we are. And I told my mom, I said, God gave me this hair. Why am I trying to cover it up? Or why do I want to straighten it to fit someone else's idea of beauty? I'm like, I'm not doing that. And just recently I cut my hair because I dye it because I have a lot of gray. So I cut it to go even more natural. Oh, that was a whole thing. That was hilarious. She's like, I just cut off all my glory. But it's that image that I think that generation, they're just unfortunately victims of that society. That hopefully that society that's in the past, and then we're moving towards just a broader perspective of what beauty is in the grand scheme of things, as far as the world and just even within our own culture, you know. So beauty, it can be as light, bright as me, or as chocolate and dark as, you know, as ebony, you know, and it should not be defined like through this European lens. And I think we as a culture, we need to start rejecting that and teaching our children to reject that. So
no, I totally agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Cody, can I add something? So when I talked about that conditioning, we got to go all the way back to not just light skin, dark skin, but the whole field Negro and house Negro. That was a big deal. And in those moments, I feel like the generational of beauty and identity of what that was. I mean, we kind of wanted to be the house Negro and not be in the field. And I think that we kind of captured that as that's what beauty was. And we've done it for generation after generation. Right. And now I feel like it's been a shift. And now we're starting to embrace like, hey, it doesn't really matter if you was in the house or in the field. We all can be beautiful. Like you could be beautiful in the field. So I think now that's the new wave of accepting who we are, but we've been conditioned to go with what they thought. And now it's like, well, what do you think of yourself? Like, we got to stop going with what others think. Go with, hey, well, what do you think? Because they may change tomorrow and say, no, we want the darkest skinned women ever. And now light skin is out. I mean, but that's happened before where light skinned guys were in and dark skinned guys were out.
Yeah, I know.
Wave, but we have to learn to love ourselves regardless of what the world is going to depict today as beauty. It has to be this inward thing.
Right.
That's true. I'm going to pick back. That's going to be my last question when we talk about sexual attraction, but that will be the last question. I want to do this, and Shay, I want to begin with you again. You mentioned light skin privilege, and I just have two more questions, and I'll let you guys go. You mentioned light skin privilege. So light skin privilege is a real thing. Sad to say it is. My wife, her brothers are dark-skinned black men, right? And she asked me a question, and she said, if you were my brother's, shade complexion, do you think you would have gotten as far, or at least as fast? And, you know, and I couldn't answer it straight. I'm like, no, I worked hard for this, you know, but at the same token, I know I get away with a little bit. It's not like white privilege. It's like a tinge of that, you know, but it's a very real thing. So I want to start there. What is that light skin privilege been like for you, Jay?
Okay, so earlier this year, I had a conversation with my husband. I'm a mother of 2 teenage daughters, and the oldest started driving this year. So I told him I need for him to have the talk with them, because I was like, I can't have that talk. One, I never received the talk. Right. And 2, my talk, even though it will start one way, it will transform into, well, you need to know your rights and you need to do this, you know, which could ultimately get them killed. Even though they're light skinned, they're darker than I am.
Right.
And just like you said with the police, I when my hair is straight, or when it was straight, I think majority of the time when I'm driving, people just assume I'm a white woman. So I'm speeding, I'm, you know, whatever. I can count the number of times I've been pulled over on one hand. And one time in particular, I was pulled over. I was running late for work and I was speeding. And the police officer pulled me over and I had an attitude. And I told him, I said, look, I'm running late for work. That's why I was speeding. Are you going to give me a ticket or let me go? Because I need to get to work. And he let me off with a warning. To me, that's light skin privilege at its finest. You know, it's just things like that. And then just being able to maneuver in society and just I'm much more accepted in certain white circles than others are. And I can tell just even when at this former job I was at, how people were just readily accepting of me. And then I've had Black coworkers like, oh, they always have an attitude with me. And I'm just like, you know, and it's like, so I can even, having that edge, I'm able to probably be in on conversations or be privy to, you know, to possibly moving forward in an organization. So it's like there are barriers, but it's so much less than probably a dark-skinned person would have. Even my husband has been told by white men, oh, your wife is so pretty. She's pretty enough to be with a white man. And I'm like, you know, it's just that mindset that, you know, it's there. And I think sometimes people forget that I'm Black sometimes, even when they're talking to me. So it's like they let you in on what they're really thinking. So, and then you know how to maneuver and kind of how to deal with them and converse with them. So you kind of learn how to maneuver within their society. So to me, that's been a privilege, and it's not fair. It's not fair at all that a lot of dark-skinned people don't even get one foot in the door when I have a seat, you know, maybe not at the table, but I'm in the room, you know. So it's just, that's been my experience with light-skin privilege.
Morgan, I'm sure that there is privilege even among being, you know, brown complected. Shay's absolutely right. There is obstacles, but there's like this, you're not quite Black. And the more that you're not quite Black, and the more, I don't want to say, I hate that word fair. Like, I think that's a ploy, right? That's an ignorant expression. But the lighter that you are, somehow there's a moral equivalency to that, right? And unfortunately, it's true in American society. What has, or the avenues that have been opened up for you, Morgan, as a brown skinned girl? Like, have you ever taken the opportunity just to look back and be like, that would have played out a lot differently if I was about 2 shades darker?
Well, I will say, just within my experience, if I speak to it from a career standpoint, how about that? Thankfully, there has never been a case to where I I feel like situations would have been a little bit different, mainly because my progression has truly been due to other individuals who are African American opening up those doors for me. So I can't say there's been any case where I've had any privilege because I was any lighter of a browner complected woman, or was missed out on because I was a little bit darker. But from a career standpoint, I think my plus has always been just the individuals that have advocated for me and have assured that I was considered for any situation. If that's a direction to look at it from a career standpoint, I don't think that there has been any moment where I had any edge or any less of an edge. But I will say, in my standpoint and the trajectory that I've been on, it's been thankfully due to individuals who look like me, lighter or browner, that advocated for me and ensured that I had a seat at the table.
Awesome. Rosie, then you, Jasmine. What has this privilege or lack thereof been like?
So I have to completely agree with Morgan. I don't know if it's like the middle place that allows us to kind of skate under the radar, but I don't have any real situations where I felt like skin color kind of didn't get me something or did get me something, because I'm really just in the middle. I will say the only time that I felt like maybe me being Black, just in general, not about skin complexion, was when I went to a predominantly white school, NIU. Of course, my major was sociology / criminology, and I took a lot of like policing in a democratic society, a lot of prison, classes. And of course, I'm kind of like the only Black in the class, and everybody was looking to me when, you're talking about urban neighborhoods and you're talking about Blacks, and they all looking like, and I'm looking like, well, my family is not all in prison. I don't know the answer to that. I'm Black, but I mean, that's not how I grew up. So I think that was probably the only time where I felt uncomfortable in my skin, because they tried to make me a spokesperson for Blacks. And I'm like, well, I don't have all these Black experiences that, you all are even talking about. Like, yes, I grew up in the hood. Yes, some of my cousins went to jail, some of them in prison, but I can't speak to all of these Black experiences, especially when you're talking about policing and reform and all that. I'm like, yeah, I'm Black, but I mean, I don't want to speak for all Black people. And, I feel like I kind of code switch pretty well. I think that's a thing that we do when we're educated, but we still from the hood. It allows us to still connect with our people, but yet we can run a business meeting and speak with intelligence. So that's probably the biggest thing I do at work with the position that I'm in, is that I go back and forth. They know Chicago will come out, but then they know I'll act like I got some sense too. So yeah, that's probably it.
All right, code switching, Jasmine and then Ariel, and then I'm gonna hit you with my last question. I know we're running out of time. So the obstacles. Now it's crazy, and this is probably a terrible example. Growing up, went to Sandburg, right? So very, very white. I was like, it was me and Reggie. He's the only Black dudes on the team, right? But like when we would play against Black schools, my white team members would just like freeze, and it was like this thing. It was like when they saw the Black athlete, especially a darker skinned Black athlete, they just in their head just felt like, this, we're not going to win, right? What is that? What if there is privilege? Is there dark skin privilege? Is there something that, I mean, I don't know. I'm asking, is there dark skin privilege, Jasmine? Hold on, you're muted. I'm gonna get you. You got it.
All right. I don't know if it's a dark skin privilege. One thing I do notice I had to be conscious of, especially at Loyola, was you had to almost be overly friendly for it to come across that I'm not that threatening Black person. You have to be like that overly bubbly person, that overly welcoming person. If you weren't, you were automatically seen as, oh, that's that type of Black person. And it was, I mean, looking back on it, it was bad because you're like, well, I don't want to be labeled as that. But then I know I'm not trying to be extra and go outside of myself just for you to even look my way. And I've had the same experience of being the only Black person in your class. I took a lot of sociology classes, civil rights, terrorism in the United States. We get to the part about the Black Panther Party or anything like that, and then it becomes crickets. You can kind of feel everybody looking at you. So when you go to answer, you try and give that politically correct answer where it's like, yeah, Malcolm X was violent and this and that, but you try and soften it up so they can still be like, oh, okay, and understand. That's one thing I felt like I found myself having to do a lot, kind of be that buffer for people to understand. And it's like, but I don't even understand myself. My parents live in Olympia Fields right now. I can't tell you that much about it. But then on the flip side of it, depending on when you go to other areas with other Black people, if you just have that look, if that makes sense, you can almost, assimilate in. If you get on the right clothes, if you get on a pair of Jordans, your hair is done however it's done. If it's some braids, some box braids, or you got a weave or whatever, if your hair is done, you have your nails together. Okay, they're gonna look at you and be like, "Oh, okay," and be cool with you, just off of the look, because that's how sometimes it goes. So it's different things you have to be aware of. So I don't think we have a privilege almost anywhere. Maybe guys might. It might be something different, that domineering type, like you said, the athlete. But as far as women, especially if you don't want to be labeled as like that angry Black woman or anything like that, you have to either go over and beyond to shrink yourself so you can fit, or just try and be the flip side of it. Like Rosie said, the code switching.
Gotcha. Ariel, see if you can answer this in a minute, and then I want to hit you with the last question. This is for everybody. So that Black privilege, right? It's probably more on the male side, but for women, is there something that we're not seeing? Is there even if it's an undertone or a, probably conversation, whatever, is there a dark skin privilege?
I was trying to think of a privilege while Jasmine was speaking, and I couldn't think of what would be seen as a privilege. I think it's more so along the lines of what Jasmine was speaking about, because I feel that darker skinned women are seen to be more strong and seen to be like more angry and more masculine, that we have to I guess bring ourselves down and make ourselves seem small in order to be accepted into the world today. But I definitely agree with her about having to be aware of how we speak to people, because there's been plenty of times, whether I've been in class or at work, and somebody has told me that I'm coming off as aggressive, or I'm coming off as being too demanding about things, where I'm just asking for something to be done. So, you have to throw that, hey, please, could you just make sure that this gets done on time, instead of like, hey, can you move it along, like make sure it's done and completed by the date. You have to add those extra things in there so you're not seen as being aggressive. And then also just being seen as strong. There's nothing wrong with being seen as strong, but I think that it's taken to another level. As seen as that we don't need help, we don't need to be protected in that way, or
awesome.
In that
all
way.
Right, so last question. This is for everybody. I want to hit this. Let's try to see if we can get this in a minute answers, because I got you guys for about 5 more minutes, and I know it's gonna go over. So, attraction. So you have. I tell anybody, you have the right to like whatever you like. I'm not here to judge. I don't get into arguments over attraction, but what I do get into is the reasons for your attraction, and I think those are worthy to be discussed, right? So, my parents never cared, and as far as trying to say you should date one type of woman over the other. I knew very early on. I was like, look, I like black women. That's what I'm attracted to. That's really what I want. But it was never like, you should go light skin or dark skin. It was never that conversation, right? But that conversation exists. Now, versa, you go to the barbershop and you start engaging into male bravado and certain cultural norms and stereotypes about the attraction of black women in certain shades and colors and certain features that come with that. So I'm opening up for you. Obviously, I'm not a woman. Have you, and the reason why, because and Ebony did a report, and Ebony magazine, I think it came out about 5 years ago. And Ariel, we talked about this last time. It said for educated black women or black women that have a bachelor's, and then they compared it to those that have a master's, their rate of marry or their percentage of likelihood of getting married decreases like substantially more than any other group, which is horrifying. And I don't even know the answer to that. But attraction, right? Did anybody in your lifetime, Ariel, say like, look, you need a dark-skinned guy or you need a light-skinned guy? What has that love channel been like?
My parents didn't have a talk with me about any shade or anything like that. They said you love who you love and whoever you bring home is who you bring home. But I am aware that the type of guys that are attracted to me, especially based off of my skin tone and how I wear my hair and stuff like that, I do know that is something that I am aware of. Because, just the type of guys that I get are the ones that are more, I guess, outspoken and stuff like that.
Makes sense. Jazz, I know you mentioned you didn't like the whole Chris Brown thing. I didn't get offended by that comment at all. It's fine. I've heard words, so, doesn't even faze me. But obviously it had some effect, right? Lo and behold, Matthew. So even though you did not necessarily vibe in that channel, was there ever any conversation like, man, you might, was there any type of, even if it's a dark comment / humor that you should attract to a certain type? You're muted again. I got you, though. I got you, sis. I got you. Yeah.
No, the one thing the biggest thing I probably remember from when I was dating is being told you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl, or hearing that kind of thing in passing. And it's just kind of like, what you mean, though? Like, what really, like, if you take that out of it and you look at things that you're supposed to look at in a relationship, like personality, like, okay, can I have a conversation with you? Like, do we have the same goals? This kind of thing. Like, does really my skin color dictate what comes along with that? Or are you just, because of what you see, you're limiting yourself? And those are the kind of conversations I would have a lot with my friends at school. Like, we'd sit around at Loyola, we just talk about it. Like, I would talk to this person, but they wouldn't give me a chance because I've overheard them say that kind of comment in passing, or just how they look at different people. So I think that's kind of what I was aware of. And so when trying to date somebody or talk to somebody, you're like, okay, yeah, that's cool. You compliment me on this, that, and third, but let's kind of move past that so I can really see where you are. Because if you're just on that superficial level, then, okay, we really have nothing else to talk about. So I think as a dark-skinned woman, you have to kind of look even more so beyond superficial things and really try and pull substance, because they'll easily pull that, oh, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl card, quickly. And if you're just fishing for a compliment, that'll wrap you up,
I mean, that's powerful. Pretty, I don't even know what to say to that. That's sad. Rosie, attraction. During the early 60-28 South Champlain days with the large cement step, outside that didn't make any type of sense. Convocation was different back then, right? Right? It was a whole vibe. I feel sorry for anybody that did not grow up during that time. So, has there ever been that discussion, like, you might want to think about talking to so and so because of whatever reasons? What has anybody ever tried to influence your attraction to any type of male?
So nobody, like my mom or aunts or uncle, nobody has really kind of pushed me to a particular type. But I will say this, I confess again, I do have a type, and I like light-skinned men. That is what I do. However, that's not really what I married. And I think that at a certain point, it becomes about maturity. So now it's like, okay, I just want somebody, no matter what color they are, I'm gonna need you to have like these things. And most of them are like the intangible things, those things that are like, honesty, trust, loyalty. Those things are kind of what matter now.
Yeah.
But I would still particularly pick a light skin guy. I'm like, what I've been told. So, let's keep it 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my brother. Look, I get it. Me, Matthew, we get it.
That's it.
We get it. Morgan, I'm throwing this to you. Do you have a type? Has anybody ever tried to influence your type?
I never had any family members, any friends influence the type of person that I should talk to. However, I had a similar experience to one of the ladies that mentioned, just coming across some individuals with statements like, yeah, you're really pretty for a brown skinned girl. I can recall a moment in college when I was standing in line for a party, and I was standing in between my two best friends who were both light-skinned young women, and there were two males standing behind me, and one of the guys was like, hey, shorty in front of me, she's really pretty. And the guy next to him was like, oh, you talking about the two light-skinned girls? And he was like, no, the brown-skinned girl. And he looked at him, was like, oh, you must just have a thing for dark-skinned chicks, huh? And so that right there just made me, as I was going through the dating experience, look for a little bit more substance, just to ensure that they are truly invested in me for me, and it's not just a fascination with my skin complexion. So yeah.
Makes sense. Shay, last question, I'm into with you. If Demond looked like my iPhone's case right here, which is fine, would it still be enough? Do you have a type? Has anybody ever tried to influence your sexual attraction?
Okay, so to answer that question that you just asked, I've dated people from almost my color all the way to, and I've dated an African,
Yeah.
So me personally, I just think, how they say a girl's first love is her dad. So most of the time you fall in love with maybe a guy that reminds you of your father. May not necessarily look like him, but he might have attributes of him. So for me, I do have a type. My type is like a caramel color, if you will, brown skin caramel color. So as far as influence, I want to put things into context. My parents grew up in the Jim Crow era South, right? So I didn't come to this realization because I thought that there was this colorism thing until I realized actually just recently it was survival for them.
Right.
As far as, if you can marry lighter, maybe you should.
Right.
Because it's a survival thing for them. Because in Jim Crow era South, a dark-skinned man's more likely to be hanged, or to run into issues with with racist. So, but at first I just rejected it and like, okay, you guys are crazy. You know, it is what it is. But as I got older, I started understanding where they were coming from. So there were hints around it, but it was never a thing like, they just didn't like somebody because they were dark skinned or anything like that I dated. They were just concerned, but it's like we were living in a different day now. Well, we thought we were living in a different day now.
Right.
So I would say there have been hints, and I know they've alluded to things like how their parents might have had influence on some things, you know. So yes, but it wasn't it's not that strong, but there were hints to it, you know, just thinking about the survival of your kids, you know, and things like that. So,
That's true. My survival. I mean, I've heard the horror stories of Mississippi in the 40s and 30s from Cal Verdes. So I get where that frame of thought, honestly, stems from. So I get it. Look, I appreciate you guys. You guys have been fantastic. I've kept you guys over 5 minutes. I apologize. I knew it was going to happen. But look, where can they connect you? I'll start with you, Shay. What are you doing? What's your social media handle? Where can they connect with you at?
You can find me on Facebook at Tequila Doris. I'm a youth director, so I'm all about trying to shape the little and mold little people and teenagers to be better human beings. So you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram, Shots of Tequila. That's with a Z, and that's about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Shots of Tequila. Look, once I do the post-production, you'll see her social media hyperlink. Morgan, where can they connect with you? What are you doing?
On Facebook, you can search Morgan L. Williams. On Instagram, I'm obviously L. If you would like to follow my blog, which you should, it's Also Sisterly with 2 O's on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Awesome. Rosie, where can they connect with you? What are you doing?
So I have Facebook, Candice Rose Bryant. Roses are red on Instagram, but I don't really do a whole lot. I got 2 kids, a full-time job. I'm trying to save the world on the low end with at-risk kids, but that's about it.
I get you. Jasmine, where can they connect with you? What are you doing?
I'm on Facebook, Jasmine Spencer. Instagram, the Mrs._Spencer. I do have my blog. The link to that is on my Instagram. If you go to my Facebook page, I'm always reposting that. It's Peculiar Royalty. So that's always up. I got 2 little people. One is 2, one is 4. So I'm just trying to raise some great humans over here.
Awesome. Look, check out her blog. It's amazing. I've checked it out. I'm trying to create a little one so that your little ones can have friends too. So Ariel, where can they connect with you? What are you doing?
You can connect with me on Facebook at Ariel Crenshaw. On Instagram, it is Crenshaw Boulevard 35. Right now, I'm just trying to make it through my master's program, graduate December 2021. So focusing on that right now.
All right. Look, I appreciate the guys. Look, next week I'm on vacation, so nothing's going on. I don't think next week. I'm trying my hardest. Or do I? No, that's wrong. I do have the podcast interview with Willie, emerging artist, him and his artist. And I have Ami coming up. I believe it's that same Tuesday. Okay, I got to check my schedule. And then after that, we're going into mental health. That's going to be coming on. But the episode that is going to be awesome and on fire is cancel culture in the church. I have Pastor Billy Jamel Evans, the Pastor Martel Beers. I have Jasmine's husband, Reverend Pastor Matthew R. Spencer. I have, who else? Prophet Lonnie Davis. And I think Legend Karen will be on there. It's going to be wild. It's going to be ratchet as always. I appreciate you guys. Till next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.